Hi, my name is Evan Betts. This is my paper for the Applied Ethics course. I chose the topic Paper versus Plastic. Paper versus plastic has been a big debate for a long time. When I think of the question, grocery stores always comes up in my mind. Which do you choose? Does it matter? There is a lot of information that is being considered when you make that decision, such as which one is more economically friendly over cost to make the product, along with stability and what the product's main purpose is going to be. For example, if the product is going to be exposed to moisture, paper probably isn't going to hold up as well. And plastics are made to last, but we only use them for a short period of time. All things considered, both have their specific uses and both have an impact on our environment. I believe we as a society have a long ways to go as far as recycling and modifying the process to be more economically friendly. First off, I think it's important to know where each of them came from in order to have an idea of what is taking place. Plastics, for instance, have changed a lot since they were first being made. The first plastics that were made came from gutta percha, which is a sap from certain trees, shellac, or secretions of tiny scale insects, and horns of animals. But before horns could be utilized, they needed to be plasticized, which is done by boiling them in water or soaking in an alkaline solution. This was until 1869 when a man named John Wesley Hyatt found that cellulose nitrate could be used as a less expensive substitute for ivory. He would plasticize it with the addition of camphor and called it a celluloid. It had many uses such as eyeglasses, frames, combs, billiard balls, shirt collars, buttons, dentures, and photographic film. It was used for about 30 years until 1951 when two chemists for Phillips Petroleum Company in Bartlesville, Oklahoma came across polypropylene and polyethylene in the petroleum. Paper is pretty simple as far as telling where it came from. The obvious answer is trees and has been that way for years. There are different types of tree species that are used and they are separated into two categories: hardwoods such as oaks and maples, then there are softwoods such as pine and spruce. With the general idea of where they both came from, the next thing to look at and consider is their effects on the environment. When paper is being made, it requires a lot of energy and is actually the third most energy intensive of all industry, and with this comes pollutants. Pulp and paper product industries are the fourth largest emitter of greenhouse gases into the environment. When we are done with each product, we either throw them in the trash or recycle them, but more often than not, when they leave our hands, they end up in a landfill. And this is where I believe the big is in the environmental impacts. It, I believe the big difference is in environmental impacts plays a role. Since the main ingredient in paper is a natural resource, such as trees, it is biodegradable and can break down with minimal impact on the earth. Now, on the other hand, plastics are made from synthetic materials or man-made with the additives of chemicals, and their main purpose is to last long periods of time. With these chemical additives, they often get released into whatever they are containing, for example, water bottles or food containers. Once we consume the water or food, the chemicals that were released are now being absorbed by our bodies. Some of the chemicals are phthalates, which are plasticizers in the making of vinyl flooring and wall coverings. These chemicals have been reported to have a measurable amount in 8 out of 10 babies and nearly all adults. Bisphenol A, or BPA, is found in polycarbonate bottles and the linings of food and beverage containers. The U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention reported that 93% of people had deductible levels of BPA in their urine. Other ways these chemicals are affecting the environment is when they end up in waterways and are consumed by the fish and other aquatic species. They also act as transportation for invasive species, which is also becoming a huge problem in the United States, or when they are buried deep in landfills and spread into the groundwater. It sounds like plastics have a lot of information going against them, but back to the plastic and paper bag question. Since plastics have came around, it has greatly decreased the amount of energy used to make bags. According to research done by Waste Management called Bags by the Numbers, plastics still have a lasting effect, but the information that is provided in the research covers plastic bag consumption versus paper bag consumption, and paper versus plastic bag. Worldwide, we use about 4 trillion bags per year, 14 billion in the US alone, and only about 1% of those bags are being recycled. Each year it costs the retailers about $4 billion to give out the free plastic bags, and in its production the US bag consumption takes 12 million barrels of oil. Annually there are 100,000 marine animal fatalities due to plastic bags, and there is an average of 46,000 pieces of plastic in each square mile of the ocean. Now for paper consumption, the US uses about 10 billion bags and cuts down 14 million trees in order to do so. And lastly, the comparison of the two together, in the making of plastic over paper, there is a 40% energy savings in the making of plastic over paper, 50% air pollution reduction in the production of paper, and 94% wastewater reduction in the making of plastic. But it takes 20 years for a plastic bag to biodegrade as little, and just 1 month for a paper bag. Except in a landfill, it takes an estimated 1,000 years for a plastic bag to degrade and centuries for a paper bag to degrade. With all the information available, you could research for years and still not cover it all, especially since there are many different ways to compare it. But I think the big picture is that they both have a huge impact on our environment and our society's health and well-being. From the production of paper products releasing huge amounts of greenhouse gases due to the high level of energy required to make it, and the entire production, consumption of products and waste of plastic putting off chemicals and greenhouse gases, along with the duration that plastics stay in the environment, something needs to be done to decrease the pollutants and effects on the environment. I, for one, would rather pay more and be healthy than to save $1 here or there and ingest poisons, only develop health issues and leave a negative carbon footprint for the future to have to take care of. One thing I would recommend beginning with is utilizing plastics for their long lifespan, not only recycling but reusing. For example, refilling water bottles or reusing plastic bags can greatly reduce the need for pollution that comes along with it. That is the end of my paper and the end of my video. Bye.